Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. Now if you're familiar with our channel, you know that we preach a pretty pacifist view when it comes to our fellow man. When Alan Shepard, the second human to leave the flat Earth, and consequently also the name of my Mass Effect character, returned from his trip in space, he said the following: "I realized up there that our planet is not infinite, it's fragile. That may not be obvious to a lot of folks, and it's tough that people are fighting each other here on Earth instead of trying to get together and live on this planet. We look pretty vulnerable in the darkness of space." Shepard's view of humanity and the planet Earth widely changed after he viewed it from space, and he wouldn't be the first to experience this cognitive shift, later diagnosed by psychologists as the overview effect. But space travel is still very expensive and not accessible to the masses. Now scientists want you to think that's because of something called gravity. What's really happening is that the flat Earth is constantly accelerating upwards, which is why we are grounded on the ground. Which is a shame because I really believe that we should all view Earth from space at least once in our life. It gives us a little more context to what Earth is when compared to the wider galaxy. It's our small and precious little lifeboat here in the great empty vastness of space. But what if there was another way? Instead of just running around kidnapping people, throwing them into vans, and then shooting them into space against their will, what if something else happened? Something like an alien invasion. Now, that would wake up humanity and unite them even quicker than Facebook. You greedy psychopath, Mark, no one believes that you want to actually unite the world, and no one really believes that you understand what friendship is in the first place. Hashtag they are amongst us already. Now, obviously, there's a real good chance that we'll lose an alien invasion, but should we survive, that'll be a defining moment in human history. It will be the accumulation of everything we have learned in all the practice wars we've fought amongst each other on Earth, from the Peloponnesian War to the 100-Year War to World War II, and of course the war where Tom Cruise keeps on respawning. So as bad as war is, sometimes there are some benefits that we can gain from it. Today we'll be looking at 5 of the most important battles in Star Wars history. Some battles are known for their heroic charges, decisive turning points, and cunning strategies. Other wars are known for swallowing a complete generation of men and destroying the spirit of nations. The Restonic Campaign was the latter, and perhaps one of the deadliest series of battles in Star Wars history. 2,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, the new Sith Wars had started after the fallen Jedi Thanius reignited the Sith Empire. Now, the new Sith War was more of a period of time rather than just one war. For one, it lasted over 1,000 years and saw hundreds of small wars and battles slowly erode the Republic's power, especially in the Outer Rim. Most of the galaxy would fall into a dark age as the fighting would continue non-stop. The only respites happening when the Sith fought amongst each other in civil wars. By 1,002 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Sith were united once again under the Brotherhood of Darkness, led by the fallen Jedi Lord Khan. The Brotherhood of Darkness was facing off against the Republic and the newly militarized Jedi force known as the Army of Light, led by Lord Hoth, the manliest man Jedi to ever man. This was a crazy period in galactic history where both the Jedi and Sith were going to very extreme lengths to recruit new individuals into their orders. This of course led to a significant drop in the quality of Force users for both organizations. Now, if the Clone Wars was Operation Enduring Freedom when it came to casualties, then the Restonic Campaign was the American Civil War. The losses on both sides were tremendous, and that was because these Force users were so evenly matched. At Restonic, a total of 7 battles were fought, along with several skirmishes and massacres. During the first battle, Lord Khan took a small Sith fleet and invaded the Republic-held planet, completely destroying the entire Republic fleet, leaving no survivors. The second battle of Restonic was a failed Republic attempt to retake the planet. The third battle of Restonic was the first time the Army of Light saw action under Lord Manly Hoth. Using a fleet of starfighters, they passed the Sith blockade and engaged Sith forces on the ground, defeating them. Not much is known about the 4th, 5th, and 6th battles of Restonic, but it's known that the Sith won the 4th, and the Jedi won the 5th and 6th. By the time of the 7th battle, the Brotherhood of Darkness was more or less defeated. They were trapped underground in an expansive cave system. Lord Khan had been given a secret Sith weapon called the Thought Bomb by another Sith named Darth Bane. This was a terrible weapon that required several incredibly strong dark side Force users to connect their minds and create a swirling, concentrated storm of pure unhappiness and evil, which once detonated would kill every living being within its radius and trap their spirits for eternity. In a last-minute desperate charge to stop Lord Khan, Lord Hoth took 100 Jedi volunteers into the cave system to stop him. But he was too late, and together the Sith Brotherhood and the 100 Jedi perished. The Ruusan battle basically set into motion everything that would happen in the prequel trilogy. The Thought Bomb was a part of Darth Bane's plan to eliminate the Sith Brotherhood and the rule of the strong, and replace it with his own rule of two philosophy. The second thing that happened was the Ruusan Reformation. This would lead to the demilitarization of the Republic forces along with the Jedi Order. This would end 1,000 years of war and lead to another 1,000 years of uneasy peace. When you compare it to the 1,000-year New Sith War, the Galactic Civil War seems like a footnote in history. But the length and size of the war oftentimes doesn't increase or decrease its importance. The Battle of Yavin 4 was hardly even a battle, more like a skirmish or a raid. It only involved a handful of rebel snub fighters facing off a giant space station. And Tarkin's nonchalant reaction to the rebel threat reflects just how unthreatening this attack seemed. But what resulted was an event that would signify the beginning of the end for the Empire and the Sith Order. While the destruction of Alderaan made some Imperials rethink their role in the Empire and caused mass waves of defection, Yavin 4, the destruction of the Death Star, made people realize that the rebels could actually win the war. It increased rebel recruitment and funding and also inspired many different groups to take up arms against the Empire. At the same time, it made Emperor Palpatine push for increasingly harder measures, which alienated a lot of the more moderate Imperials and increased unrest in the galaxy. Now the Battle of Yavin 4 would lead to the rebels overstretching themselves during the Mid-Rim Offensive, and the rebellion reached an all-time low during the Battle of Hoth, almost losing their entire high command. But the Battle of Yavin had done its damage and made the rebellion resilient enough to survive all of these setbacks, and eventually they would be successful during the Battle of Jakku, where they finally defeated the Empire. Coruscant is the heart of the galaxy. Hidden beneath its many hundreds of layers like fossils were the history and records of everything that's ever happened in the entire galaxy. It's been the one constant in the timeline, the one stable world where things stay relatively unaffected by what was happening in the wider galaxy. Although there have been many battles on Coruscant, the planet has never truly fallen or suffered under occupation since the legendary days of the Rakatan Infinite Empire. That is, until the legendary Yuzhang Vong invaded the galaxy from their own. The Yuzhang Vong were a terrifying nomadic spacefaring race that had lost their own galaxy in a devastating war against sentient AI machines. The Yuzhang Vong's technology was 100% organic and probably GMO-free. Actually, no, their technology was heavily genetically modified. The thing is, they saw anyone who used machine technology or robot technology as infidels. So they naturally saw the New Republic as their enemy. The Yuzhang Vong attacked a completely unprepared New Republic and quickly cut its way towards the core of the galaxy before the government even realized just how serious the invasion was. The first part of the Yuzhang Vong War ended with the fall of Coruscant. It was an immense battle which was carried out by 10,000 Yuzhang Vong ships and at least half of the New Republic Navy. Despite the gravity of the situation, the political infighting that had plagued the New Republic was still present during this battle, and the New Republic's defenses were unorganized and ineffective. After destroying Coruscant's orbital defenses, Yuzhang Vong ground forces proceeded to take over the surface of the planet. In the past, armies have attempted and were even successful with taking over certain districts of Coruscant, but most military leaders thought that taking over the entire planet was impossible. The Coruscant government themselves didn't even have control of the lower levels of the planet. Nonetheless, the Yuzhang Vong occupied Coruscant and began terraforming the world in an attempt to replicate their own original home planet, the living world of Yuzantar. As a result, the New Republic would collapse and reform as the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances. This was a slimmer, less bloated military machine designed for one purpose: to destroy the Yuzhang Vong. The Galactic Federation included many unlikely allies like the Imperial Remnant and the Hedges Consortium. Although victorious, the Yuzhang Vong had also suffered massive casualties, losing the first entire 2 waves of ships they used to assault the planet, and countless warriors in the ground invasion and lengthy occupation of the surface. Although the Yuzhang Vong terraforming process was corrupted by Jedi saboteurs, Coruscant, the center of the galaxy, would be irreversibly changed, forcing future galactic governments to place their capital elsewhere. Although the Clone Wars was a false war in which both sides were commanded by the ingenious Sith leader Sidious, it is one of the first times in known history where both sides of the conflict sent proxy soldiers to fight their war. Both the Galactic Republic and the Separatist Alliance couldn't afford heavy civilian casualties, so the Grand Army of the Republic was mainly made of clones, while the Separatist Army was made of droids. During the Battle of Geonosis, we see perhaps the future of all warfare in the Star Wars galaxy. Massive battles with many combatants, but for the most part relatively low civilian casualties. This was a part of Palpatine's genius. He needed a credible threat to take more executive control of the galaxy, but he didn't want to destroy the Republic in the process with an extremely costly war.
I love democracy.
So when he does take over the galaxy, he does need to do some rebuilding, but for the most part the civilian populace is intact and ready to work for him. But for one reason or another, despite the clear advantages of both using clone troopers and separatist droids, we haven't seen this practice being adopted by other factions. I thought for the last battle we might talk about the Great Schism. This was between the legions of Lethro, the first dark side users, and the Jedi, but you know what? I'm tired of talking about the Jedi and the Sith and their constant back and forth killing. They're just a bunch of religious extremists killing each other and bringing death and destruction to the galaxy. So instead, I want to talk about a battle that maybe not a lot of you guys know about. One of the most important species in the galaxy, which basically set up all the spawn points for the various races and factions, was known as the legendary Recantants. They formed one of the earliest empires in the galaxy and developed some very important technologies like hyperdrives. Using what they saw as lesser species as slaves, the Recantants spread humans and other alien species across all of their known worlds. After their downfall, the Republic grew in the ashes of the Empire. But little do most people know, the Recantants actually started off with very humble beginnings. They are a relatively primitive species that started on the planet of Lihon. One of the elder species, known as the Qua, traveled across the galaxy bringing with them new technology and their understanding of the Force. They mainly focused on uplifting primitive species like the Recantants. There was a problem though. To be blunt, the Recantants as a species were innately evil. They had a natural affinity for the dark side of the Force and cannibalism. The Qua unfortunately found out too late, and by 36453 BBY, the Recantants began attacking the Qua emissaries on Lihon after they refused to give them their Infinity Gate technology, which allowed them to travel amongst the stars. The small group of Qua on the planet were slaughtered, but they did manage to destroy their own Infinity Gate in an attempt to prevent the Recantants from escaping their own planet. But the damage they had done was irreversible and forever changed the course of the galaxy. The Recantants would escape their planet and would continue to spread across the galaxy, destroying the Qua and anyone else who stood against them. The Qua would eventually degenerate into the Qui, which were basically just blue dinosaurs. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 5 most important battles in Star Wars history. As you can see, they don't all take place during the Skywalker saga. That's only a very small portion of the entire Star Wars timeline. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that notification button, and as usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.